Hey, this is Cool Trains in Montreal, and I'm showing off some more of my model trains today. And this is Soo Line. Soo Line is a subsidiary of Canadian Pacific, and I got these for their obviously really nice colors. And as you can see, they have some really great graphics, and they seem to match very well with the Canadian Pacific's red and white. I don't think that was done on purpose. I think that was more like an accident because the companies were close, but not really that close. But in any case, these are really, really cool locomotives. And this paint scheme goes back to about the 1960s. So what I'll do is I'll back it up a little bit more to allow people to see the locomotives and then go through each one, each type. So this one here is a GP38-2. This one here is a GP35. And behind it was an SD60. So I'll show them more in more detail later on. Okay, so here, this is probably the first locomotive that I got in the Soo Line scheme back in the 1990s, 97 I think I bought this. This is an Atlas model. It's really nice. I mean, for the time, you see that they didn't paint the handrails at the time. This is exactly an as-delivered locomotive. In fact, I think it even had the hook couplers that Atlas used to have on their engines and rail cars back in the day. So they switched over to that around 1999 or 2000. And I would have had these couplers installed by probably the guys over at Hobby Junction, because it's a little difficult for me to change the couplers on these things. They're small. So next I wanted to show this really nice railroad car. This is typical of the grain cars that the Soo Line was famous for, because it is a Granger railroad. It ran pretty much from Chicago to Minneapolis in the Midwest of the United States. And it was kind of a bridge route for CP from, I think it's North Portal is their gateway in Saskatchewan down to the US. So usually the CP trains would use the Soo to get down to Chicago. So that's why they had it as a subsidiary. This is a PS2 CD hopper car, Pullman Standard. They built these cars, and I really like the grain sheaf and stuff like that. These Colormark cars, white, a very odd color for railroad to choose, considering that there's a lot of road grime and stuff that gets kicked up, but still very interesting. And here's another one. Now this is an ACF car, American Car and Foundry, and it represents a later car, I suppose. It's just a competitor to the other Pullman Standard type car. I mean, I like both. This one also has a nice, the wheat sheaf, and you can actually still see these sometimes rolling around in Montreal. You'll see like a very grimy, very rusted car, but the Soo Line is kind of a ghost. So you see this, the green Soo Line lettering, you'll see that's mostly what comes through. So yeah, so just to go back to the locomotive here, this is like a 1500 horsepower locomotive with a V16 in it. And it's a GP7. I don't know if I mentioned that it was a GP7. This is a EMD model GP7. So all of my locomotives are actually in this paint scheme, this red and white. Soo Line actually had a later paint scheme. It was a red, like a candy apple red with a different type of Soo. The SOO was kind of a speed lettering type of thing. And they also had, prior to that even, they had like a speed lettering kind of Soo, SOO. But I kind of like this style, which is really the better one actually for me. So over here I have a GP35 and an GP38-2 GP38-2. Yeah, that's right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll forward that group of locomotives, because they have all three locomotives types here, and they run pretty well together actually. I want to just mention that. So this one is a Walthers locomotive. Now I got it fairly cheap at I think it was Pacific Western. So the detail on it I've heard isn't as good, and it's decent, and it runs well, and it actually runs well with these Atlas locomotives. So I could run this trio very smoothly, as you just saw. So this is a GP38-2. This is a V16 engine, and also 2,000 horsepower in the real thing. And this represents a later Soo Line variant, where they took the round nose that you saw in the older locomotive and made it like this 45-degree kind of slant, which is actually works pretty well. And here's another older one. This is the GP35, which is 2,500 horsepower, also V16. This one's an Atlas model. I have two of them, two different numbers. They run very well as a match set. I can show that at some other point. And it's a really nice locomotive. Again, it's very well detailed, and you can see that it's one of the later Atlas models because they had started now painting these locomotive handrails. And I think I would have got, this represents a model from, I think, 2006 or 7. I'm not sure when they came out. I'd have to check. But they came with the regular couplers, the ones that we see today, not the horn hook couplers from years ago. So that's one of the more modern ones. Now here's the modern SD60. Now these are the ones that would have run in Montreal most often, most prevalently, along other CP locomotives. I've even seen them in this paint scheme, very dirty. They come in, they accumulate a lot of road grime, these. And you can actually still see them today because they have been repainted into the Canadian Pacific paint scheme, and they were refurbished. So these are SD60s. These are Locomotive EMDs. So these are, you know, large locomotives. They are CC trucks. These are like 6-wheel trucks. And I think these are 3,800 horsepower. If I'm not quite sure, I'd have to check that up. I think it's 3,800 horsepower. And these are also V16 locomotives with the V16 engines. And so EMDs, all of this is EMD. So yeah, that's really nice. I have two of them, so they run as a match set. I can put them as a match set, just like the just like the GP35s. So I do have an example of their cabooses. This is another example of the international caboose that a lot of railroads got in the late 50s and early 60s. So this is an Atlas model, and all of their cabooses were painted like this at one point. A more modern scheme would have been this like maroon with a Soo. Similar scheme, but I don't like that. I really like the red cupola. I really like the white. I've only got the one. At some point I would like to get a second one, I suppose. And I probably will have to replace the stovepipe because the stovepipe is broken on this one. But anyways, whatever. It still runs. It's still nice. I kind of have to accept that for the time being anyway. Most of my cabooses are in good order. This is just like the odd one or two that have a broken stovepipe on it. So anyways, that's just a quick rundown of these Soo Line locomotives and some of the rail cars that Soo had that were very colorful. So if you like what I do, please subscribe to Cool Trains in Montreal. Have a good day.